I think we're live. Great. Yes. Welcome, Matthias, to our UAA webinar.
Thank you very much.
For everybody who's watching this live, so happy that you joined us in 2020, the first webinar of the UAA this year and many more to come. And this year's theme is about you as a catalyst for change, how to contribute to climate action and to contribute to a sustainable future. So to kick off this whole series of events, we have tonight with us Matthias Boeing. I have to say, it's like the airplane maker Boeing here with us. And yeah, he's going to share a personal story with us. It's going to be very inspiring to many of us, because I'm very sure that a lot of people and amongst all the Unitechers as well, that we really want to do something for climate. And we see many different things that other people are doing, and we do wonder, how can we contribute? And someone like yourself, Matthias, who comes from, let's say, a corporate background, right?
Yeah.
In Europe, and then you joined the consulting business, and then you actually joined some automotive brands, some big ones. And the question is, how did you decide, of course, to take this step to do something for climate, and what are your thoughts behind it, motivations, as well as the path? And we're super curious to hear all about it in the presentation that you're gonna give us. And in the meantime, everybody who is live with us, please send your comments and questions in the chat box that you have next to the live stream window, so that we will be collecting it, and then Matthias will answer them after he does his presentation. We reserve time for that. Also, as I told you in the email that you received, there is kind of a little bit of a delay in the live presentation that we have with Matthias here and the YouTube appearance. So when we don't react in real time, you know why that is, okay? But yeah, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Matthias, tonight.
Thank you very much.
And I look really much forward to hearing your story as a plastic pirate. So let's get going.
Well, thank you very much, Angela. Also from my side, a warm welcome to everyone. I am calling in today from a little town north of Norway, north of Oslo, actually. And I'm very happy to be here today because I really love to share this personal story that, you know, changed my life completely in a way. And, you know, today is not only about, you know, I talk about why I made the decision to leave the corporate world. I also want to share a bit what the NGO is actually doing, and then also maybe end with a bit more insight what you can also do and take away from this to your own life. Because I'm sure also, as Angela said, that there are many out there that think about a similar step, but maybe have are missing the examples that are out there, that it actually is possible to do this change and what comes out of it. So I will reserve a bit of time for me now to speak in this presentation, but I really want also to have a conversation with you guys of all the questions that you have, you know, and there is no question forbidden to ask. You can ask any question, personal or also professional questions, but then we can do that later in the chat, and I will answer them all to my best knowledge. Okay, so let's start with the presentation maybe. I hope you can all see them, the slides. You know, these two pictures are actually pictures of me not so long ago. And as Angela already said, I started out as the typical corporate business person. So after university in Germany, in the US and England, I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers in the management consulting business, and which later turned into Strategy End. I'm pretty sure some of you are quite familiar with this brand, because I felt like that was a good start into a career. It gives you a lot of practical knowledge. You know, you get exposure to very big corporates and brands, and you know, you can talk to C-level and advise C-level on a very, very quick path. And it was a very challenging environment. In the beginning, I really liked it, but you know, it's also a lot of work. And those of you who have probably done an internship in consulting know that. So after two and a half years, I switched over to my first ever client at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Daimler or Mercedes-Benz, the ones that built these trucks and cars on the left picture. I joined them because I got the chance to be a team leader. So I got my own team at the age of 26. I thought that was a very big challenge and an interesting challenge. So I stayed with Daimler for 2.5 years also, built up a team around digitalization, how we can change a big corporate like Daimler into using more digital business models, developing more digital business models, etc. After that, I left Daimler and joined product management, Porsche Digital, the internal accelerator of Porsche, as a product manager, and I was building apps and car sharing products for Porsche. But throughout this entire process, it was then 8 years that I've worked. I always felt like, yes, this was the career I wanted to go to, because it was giving me so much. I was learning so much, but at the same time, I also felt that something was completely missing. And that something really drained a lot of my energy away. And I'm now at 29 or 28 when I left the corporate world last year. I really felt drained of energy already. And somebody would say at the age of 28, that's very early. But I was just feeling this. This was a subjective feeling, and I wasn't feeling that this career is actually giving me the things that I wanted to have from it. At that point of time, I wasn't really sure what it was, so it was very difficult to actually find out what it was. But I knew that it was somewhere around purpose and why, because throughout my career to that point, I was always struggling to connect to the purposes of these companies. So when I was at PwC, yes, I was a good consultant, and I like to talk to clients and talk to people, but the purpose of the company, I was always struggling to connect with. It got better at Daimler, but still there was still something completely missing that came from the bottom of somewhere deep inside me. And so I really, really felt drained of energy after these 8 years. And, but there was always one thing that always pulled me out of this energy emptiness, and that was sailing. So I really love to sail. I have a sailing license. I have been sailing in Thailand, in Sweden, in Norway, in Denmark, in Germany, in Greece. And this is a specific picture I like from Thailand, where we sailed into the sunset. And when I was sailing, I always felt like that thing that was missing when I was in those companies. And yes, people could say now that, yeah, of course, because that's not work, that's holiday and whatever. No, but it was something different. It was something, there was a purpose why I did this, because I wanted to be close to the ocean. I love to be close to nature, and felt this good vibe around me. And I really wanted to have this feeling also in my work life, because we spend so much time working, and I'm just 29. There's a lot of work to be done in the future. And I just wanted to recreate this feeling I got on this boat, wherever I sailed, also to my professional life. And it became clear that in the career that I was in, that was very difficult to find. And then last year in the summer, I went sailing again, and this is in the Stockholm archipelago. I went sailing with some friends, and I was sitting there, and I remember that I thought, maybe I just need to do something that is connected with the ocean, because the ocean is something that gives me so much value back when I felt drained of energy, drained of all the work that I had to do. So I figured that maybe is this what I was looking for, the connection I was looking for, the purpose, the why is connected to oceans and sailing. And so in that moment when I was sailing in Stockholm, I actually decided to leave Porsche within the probation time. First time I did this, within 6 months, quitting my job, because there was no, I knew it doesn't make sense now to stay. So I quit my job, sold all my furniture. The only thing I kept was my piano that now a friend in Stuttgart has. He's quite lucky. I went to the Canary Island. I just escaped because I had to go back somewhere where I could be by myself, because I didn't know what the next step would be. I knew I wanted to do something with the ocean, but I was really, really lost. And this is a very scary feeling, I can be honest with you. I was very scared when I was sitting on the Canary Islands without knowing what I should do. And that I just quit a job with Porsche, maybe one of the companies so many people love to work for. And while I was sitting there on the Canary Islands in my apartment, I just started Googling, and I started Googling just freely about ocean and, you know, what can we do? And I started looking, can I work on a fishing trawler or whatever? And then I found this website, which is called Workaway. By the way, a very good source of finding these projects. And I found this NGO, which is called In the Same Boat. And In the Same Boat was founded in Norway, and they do cleaning operations based on sailing boats in the north of Norway, in one of the most beautiful landscapes I've ever seen and sailed in. So I wrote this guy who founded it, and within 2 days, I saw myself on a plane ride to the north of Norway, joining a boat of people I've never met before, from all around the world, young and a bit older, but especially on a very small boat. And yeah, that was a complete shift from working in a corporate world to living with foreigners on a small boat, picking plastic. But to be honest, it was a very, very good decision. I have been doing that for 8 months now, starting in August last year. I just now want to go into a bit more detail what the NGO is actually doing, because I feel like it's a good way also to show people what these NGOs out there are doing. So as I said, the NGO was founded in 2017. It's a non-profit, non-governmental organization. And you know, the founder has a similar story. He's actually a very famous photographer in Norway, and he hated his industry. He was very good at it. He did photo shootings with a lot of stars. He did film productions and TV productions, but he always felt something was missing. And it was so similar to my story, and it was so funny to see it. And we connected immediately because of this story. And he got this vision that he wanted a marine litter-free ocean worldwide. So no marine litter in any of the oceans that we have. And he wanted to achieve that, not only by cleaning, yes, that's important, but also to grow knowledge about the problem and how we can solve it, and grow awareness and communication around this problem. So he's really good. He's using his skills as a photographer and filmmaker on all of his channels to post about this marine litter problem and how we try to clean it up. And what you actually try is, you know, there's these 3 major problems that we are facing, and I'm pretty sure you all are familiar with this, but there is a marine litter emergency. We have 150 million tons of plastic or marine litter worldwide in the oceans right now, and we add another 8 million tons every year, which is worsening the health of our oceans, obviously. The other problem is that we have insufficient waste management. You know, even in Norway, there is the problem that the stuff is not being picked up. It's not existing or even lacking effectiveness. And then the third pillar is actually that, you know, even though consumers and producers are aware of this problem, we don't see a change in behavior, or not a significant change. And that is, you know, very, very severe when we want to tackle this problem. So what did In the Same Boat develop? They developed a floating cleaning operation, meaning that they use regional cleaning teams based on sailboats with skippers that are very mobile and can turn around and, you know, and go to islands in different areas. We use volunteering as manpower, which gives us a competitive cost structure to every other organization cleaning. And we also use awareness and consulting to create a sustainable system change. So we actually want companies to understand what kind of damage they do. We want people to understand what kind of damage they do if you throw the plastic in the ocean. And we also want, you know, governments to understand what kind of policy change they have to do. So these are the 3 things that we are actively doing. And I was cleaning, I was giving presentations at universities, I talked to companies. So everything around this is the work of the NGO. And when we look a bit closer how we do this, maybe this is interesting for some of you. I was actually living on the sailboat that you can see on the left, which is called Liebe. It's a Beneteau 38 feet boat, place for 6 people, plus the skipper. That is our operational center. So we actually live on this, and it's the office of the skippers. And it's also the transit vehicle between focus areas. So when we move between islands, we use the sailboat. When we use the sailboat and went to a different area, we then use workboats that you can see here to drop off volunteers on the islands. And when we drop them off, they will start picking up plastic with plastic bags and deposit the litter back in the boats. And then we go back to the harbor to put it into the waste management system. So we actually use both sailing boats and work boats. Yes, we got some criticism all the time that they say, oh yeah, but you're not so environmental friendly if you use work boats. But to be honest, if we want to clean beaches, we can't do it with a sailboat only. So we need also to have both with engines. So when it comes to the waste management, we collaborate with a lot of companies here in Norway, and that is then put into the regular recycling process. We also bring plastic, 30% of our plastic goes to a company that produces furniture with it. So we always try to create ways to recycle the plastic. We also have a new cooperation with these guys here. They're called BraceNet. It's a company from Hamburg. So we send them our ghost nets that we find, so old fishing nets, that they then produce brace nets out of. We also collect the data that we have and document it because we are contributing to an EU-wide initiative to gather data around marine litter movement around the world. What have we achieved so far? You know, in 2019, we collected around 280 tons in more than 22,000 bags in 350 plus locations around Norway. We also retrieved 200 depots. So we have a system where people can register a depot of plastic that they found, and we will pick it up. We have an average KPI of around 100 kilograms per day per person, and we work in teams of 8 full-time volunteers plus the skippers in those areas. You know, we also discuss a lot, and it's also interesting maybe for you, the stuff that we find. And I know that the public discourse is a lot about personal use items. So for example, the plastic straw, or the thing that you clean your ears with, or balloon clips. They are now banned in the EU. I'm not saying that that is a big that this is not a big problem, but based on the data that we find, there's actually a much bigger problem in Norway. And the biggest problem in Norway is fishing industry. So as you can see from the data, 66.5% of the stuff that we find is actually fishing gear. So ropes, nets, fishing balls, etc. So I really also want to give you the story that maybe politics should understand that it's not the private person only that can do something to stop it, but we also have to talk about industry responsibility, which we are currently not doing so much because it's the lobby behind it. So, you know, it's not only personal consumption. Yes, everybody can do something, but the big leverage is especially on the industry part. And if you just take this with you, and if you're concerned with politics or whatever, I think this is a good message that we should send to our politics, that it's actually the industry that we have to take responsibility, that has to take responsibility with this. We also have a vision in our NGO, and the vision is that we, based on the best practices that we developed in 2019, we can actually clean the complete Norwegian coast by 2025. So around 20,000 spots. It is actually a lot of money that we need for that. So it's 125 to 150 million NOK, which is approximately 12.5 to 15 million euros. But that is the cheapest way to clean the entire Norway of marine litter in the best time, because we have the best KPIs to do that. So right now we are in a range of 13 NOK per kilogram to 39 NOK per kilogram of cost to collect 1 kilogram of plastic, and that is very, very cheap. And this is all based on volunteers like me. We can only achieve this because it's volunteering. Nobody's paid, not the skippers, not the volunteers. The skippers will be paid in the future because it has to be a long-term position. But everything of this is based on volunteering, and I have been one of those volunteers for the last 8 months. You know, but I also want to talk a bit, and this is probably more about what some of you are interested in, about career and leadership and why I did this step. You know, I think what is really important here, and I started doing that in the beginning, to realize what is missing. And as I said at the beginning, I didn't know what was missing so much. I could feel that there was something missing, but I couldn't put my finger to it. And that process is really important in terms of career and leadership development, I believe. If you start really early to develop your individual purpose, why you want to be working for a company or an NGO or a party or whatever, you really need to figure out, is this the individual purpose that you're connecting with? I did this very late, to be honest. Some do it much later, but I think I was already late. I already worked for 8 years in one direction that was not good for me personally. So I would advise always to start this early and integrate it in your career. And what I mean with integrating is that, you know, you don't have to do this, the step that I did. My step was very radical. I quit my job, I sold everything, I flew to Norway and I joined a boat. That is a very critical, like very, very straightforward thing to do. And I don't think that everybody has to do this if they integrate this purpose much earlier in the career. So for example, you volunteer in your free time to do something like this. Everybody can organize beach cleanups when you live close to a beach, and many people do it. But you have to find this purpose first, and if this is interesting for you. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be now interested in beach cleanups. There is an individual purpose for everyone, but it's important that you find this purpose and integrate that in your career. The second thing I really want to stress is I actually believe that sustainability skills or being concerned about sustainability will become one of the future trends in career development. I think that you can see that companies are now shifting to a much more sustainable mindset, and that will have an impact on careers in those companies. So I believe if you can show that you always thought about, the environment, about society in a sustainable way, that will actually help your career development and not hinder it. I still met a lot of people that said, "Oh, Matthias, how could you quit your job and this will be bad for your career and whatever." Of course, I didn't listen to that, but I actually think that this year that I took off will actually help me much more in my career than if I would have continued. And of course, maybe in terms of money earning, it was stupid to do it. Because if you work at Porsche, you get a company car, I had, a good salary, an amazing salary, but I'm not talking about money here. I'm talking about that you build a career that is actually helping you in your development personally and professionally, and not only in money terms. And I think in that, sustainability will become a trend in career, and we can see it already today. In the same boat has right now over 2,000 open applications for people wanting to join the organization. And there are so many people from dropouts of corporations or companies that want to do something. It's not only the 18-year-old that doesn't know what to study. There are also a lot of people coming from different types of areas of their life. So I think that sustainability and thinking about the environment will become a future trend in career development. And I think we can discuss this later when you have questions to this. I'm very open to hear what you think about this. But when I think about also the skills and attitudes that you develop during that time, there is a lot of stuff in here that actually already today companies are looking for. Like, to do these things, to go out of an environment that you're familiar with, you need to have courage. You need to get out and be, I was afraid when I quit my job and didn't know what to do. But that shows courage. It shows that you understand the situation, that you need to change something, and that you can't continue like this. And this is something that you can always use in any kind of application in the future if they ask you, where did you show courage in your life? And it's a very important skill from my perspective nowadays to have courage. There will be decisions to be made in companies in the future that require a lot of courage. To break up with things that you did before that always worked. No, in the future, you need to change much more often. It also gave me a lot of foresight because I had time to think about my development, connect with myself, and that helps you to understand where you want to develop in. It gave me a lot of empathy. To be honest, I met people on this boat that I would never ever meet in real life. Like there was this girl from Germany. She was an activist. She was demonstrating a lot against nuclear power, against the coal plants, And we got in touch, we talked to each other because there was no way we couldn't talk. We lived on a small boat. So I could understand her side of the view. You know, I would never do what she's doing, this activism where she, you know, throws stones and whatever. But I was in my bubble. I've never met a person like that before. And, you know, showing empathy to even a person that you're not connecting on that level is something I learned. And it's only if you get out of your office and talk to these people, and you will not meet those in the office. You will sit in the office and you will look at these people that, you know, they're on TV, stopping a train going somewhere, and you will think like, oh, these idiots. No, they're not idiots. They're doing this because they have, you know, they understand, or they want to change something. And by doing and getting out of this comfort zone, I could actually connect to these people. I was this person before that was like, oh, what are these people doing? I would never do that. But this is something that you learn from this experience. It's the same with humbleness. I think what these things teach you is that we don't take everything for granted so much. And if you see the problems that we create with marine litter, for example, you will get much more humble in the way you live your life. When you're in this treadmill of working and earning more money and getting the next promotion, you're just driven by this more and more and more. And when you take this step out of the organization like this, it teaches you a lot of humbleness, because you're just part of an organization that does something good. And that is something I really felt. I also believe that, you know, getting out of this situation and dealing with your problems is leadership in itself. So you show actually leadership in taking over responsibility for a problem that I didn't create. And, you know, I try to change something about it. And I think that is what a leader should do today. They should take, you know, they should take the courage, they should have the foresight, they should have the empathy, they should be humble about it, but they should do it. So they should lead this change. And if you do this actually by, you know, joining an NGO or, you know, thinking about sustainability, that is leadership nowadays. And you can always connect that in your corporate world or in your business world that you want to, you know, make a career. It is that you show leadership in terms of taking over responsibility to change something for the society. And I think that is the most important skill somebody has to or should have in terms of leadership. And then last but not least, I had to write this down today because I heard this bullshit bingo word in the business world everywhere, outside of the box thinking. This is actually getting outside of the box for real. You know, you're leaving your box office and you're doing something, you're standing on an island, you're picking up plastic, you learn methods how to, you know, to clean beaches, you learn methods how to deal with people. This is outside of the box. Not if you go to like a fancy other office and do some trainings with somebody. That's not outside of the box. If you really want to see how completely different people work, you need to do something like this. And then you can really talk about, I did something that was completely outside of the box. Yeah, now you probably ask yourself, okay, what should I do? What is the next step? So I actually tried to summarize a bit what might be an advice where you can start. And as I said earlier, you don't all have to quit your job now. This is not what I'm trying to do. I know that I have been a bit extreme. And by the way, in the background, you see one of the images, what I experience every night living on that boat. Beautiful sunsets. You really connect to the nature if you are doing this. And it was just an incredible experience. Anyways, if I should give you some advice on where to start and what I can do personally or individually, as I said in the beginning, I think it's very good to start early with everything, to make a plan, to think about your, think more about what you actually want to do. What is your purpose in life? And not about how can I make more money and, you know, make my career. If that's what is your purpose, that's also fine. But I'm pretty sure over 50% will have a different purpose and they think about it. So that you should do very early. Think about what is your purpose and not after 10 or 20 years when you feel like you're stuck in something. Then try to go online. Just look for stuff that you can do. Go to workaway.info. I'm not getting money from them and mentioning them here, but this is a perfect place to find stuff like this. It gives you opportunities also just go on a vacation for 2 weeks and, you know, build a little house in Norway. There's this guy who tries to get people helping him to build a house. This could also be volunteering. It doesn't have to be full-time volunteering on a boat. There's many other things, but you need to start somewhere. Something really important that helped me is do not listen to too many people. Because if you tell too many people about this, and I put this in, you know, friends and colleagues network, and we all have tons of people that we call friends and colleagues, don't talk to them because they're either jealous that you do it, or they envy you, or they want to make it bad because they can't do it, which is the same like jealousy. But don't talk to too many people because they make it mad for you. Talk to some of your best friends, your family. That's important because they also maybe understand when you find your true purpose. So I use my friends, for example, to make a sanitized check if the ocean is actually something I'm so concerned about. And when I told people about this NGO, my face lit up, and people could say, "Oh yeah, I think this is Matthias. This is actually you." You know, when I took these pictures of cleaning beaches, living on a boat, everybody said, that is actually you. I always saw you somewhere there and not in an office or whatever. So these are the friends that you should talk to, you know, and they are important to listen to. Something very interesting, especially for what I did, is start early to save money, because obviously a year off is quite expensive. Even though when you find volunteer work like this, it's not that expensive because I lived for free on a boat and I got food for free on the boat in exchange for working. So I actually didn't use so much money. But you know, if you want to do something, you should always save some money. And what helped me is I didn't get into any long-term financial commitments. So I didn't buy or rented a car or leased a car, stuff like that. I could just leave on the spot. I had to put my piano somewhere. That was the only thing that connected me to something. But that's it. And I think that's also important. And, you know, maybe finally, which is probably the most important thing, do not think too much about the next step. Something will come up. And, you know, I was so worried about, oh God, what is my next step? Which company am I going to? And I was really like, I have to leave it behind, because if you do that, you will never leave this place called work, because you will always try to find the next thing. It took me some time to realize that, but it really, really helped. And, you know, I'm also a good example. Actually, something will come up and something will develop out of this. If you are true to your purpose and true to yourself, what I've become in that part, you will find something, because you will just shine this out to people and people will see it and they will ask you, do you want to work for me? Or do you want to do this? And I'm actually now combining these two worlds. So these are, you know, the steps that I take: PwC, Daimler, Porsche Digital, then the break. I went to In the Same Boat. And now I'm at Catapult Ocean. So I joined Catapult Ocean on Monday, and it's a venture capital fund that invests into sustainable startups that try to save the ocean. And, you know, how I applied to them was basically I sent them 2 pictures of my cleanup operation. And that was it. Okay, and my CV obviously, but nothing else. And I got the job. And I think this is what I meant with something will come up. Don't worry too much. There is something, and it will actually be something that is probably more your purpose connected to than it was before. So I managed to, you know, now combine these two worlds, what I did before, but find a spot in that niche that is also satisfying the purpose I was longing for and looking for. And that is now Catapult Ocean. So that is really the last thing I want to give you. Don't worry too much about what is the next step. There will be something coming up, and it will be good, and it will be much closer to the purpose that you were looking for than before. And yes, that is basically what I have to share from my side right now. I'm very happy now to maybe listen to some of your questions and answer your questions if there are any. Yes, thank you very much for listening.
No, thank you so much, Matthias, for sharing your story with us. Very, very inspiring, and very good tips and very concrete things also, I think, very relevant to the people that are listening. And there were some questions actually, indeed, in the chat box. And I do have also some questions from my side, as well as some standpoints to, let's say, put a different standpoint on this and see some probably some thoughts that people might have on their mind when thinking or considering something like this. But let's talk about the questions that we received. Firstly, in the survey, actually, in the registration survey, there was a question saying, what was the trigger point to switch from high-paced career path to going in search for your personal why? Was there a trigger point, and what was it?
Interesting question. Is trigger point meant like a specific point of time? If that's
or probably event, maybe, I don't know, event or time, something that triggered you to actually make the switch.
I actually thought long and hard about this before I made this decision. And I came to the conclusion that there is no specific time. There was not like a meeting with my boss where I was like, oh, now this is over. I can't take this anymore. It was a very long process over time. And I also took the help of a psychologist to actually figure out what happened in that time. So it was not a specific event that made me quit, but a very, very long process over the last 8 years. And where it became clear, and it just the last step at Porsche just made it clear. Now is the time. I can't go to Bosch now or to, I don't know, another company, because it will be the same. But there was not a specific event or a trigger point. It was a very long process. If that answers the question.
Right. So is that just a question from my side? Doesn't mean that the question about the why was just always lingering in your head, or was it put into your head somehow because you saw something, or, you know, was there something that came up to maybe examples of other people, or was it just innate, let's say, to yourself?
You know, I don't want to be, first of all, I don't want to really seem like this typical Generation Y person. I know that we are a generation that is a bit difficult, and that we are, but every generation is. Every generation has their problems. And I think we are a generation that is very much concerned about the why and why we're doing this. And I'm one of this person, and I am a Generation Y. And this question has always been in my head. It was much more present in the end, and I could understand it much better, because I made the effort to actively tackle this question and figure out what is missing and what happened. In the beginning at PwC, I didn't realize that. I felt, it was a much more subtle feeling that something was wrong, and I was always like, but is this really what I want to do? But anyways, I just have to finish this presentation now at 12 o'clock at night. So I knew that there was this feeling, but I wasn't sure what it was. But with the help of psychologists and coaches and people around me, I figured out that there's actually this why that is missing. The purpose, I'm not connecting to these things that I'm doing so much. And I worked so hard in those. So that was actually always there, but it became much more clearer in the end than before.
Yeah. So by the way, can you maybe stop sharing screen so we can see in a presentation? So this is an interesting thing, I think, because would you, so let me just ask the other questions first before I continue with this. So there was a question asking, what do you mean by chemistry bottles that you find on the beaches? What are chemistry bottles?
Chemistry bottles are the things that we find. It's huge bottles of some sort of chemistry that they use on oil rigs, for example, or fishing boats. And they just throw them over into the ocean. So we found stuff with, you know, very easy stuff with cleaning soap in there. But we also found cleaning gasoline. We found chemicals that are coming to clean, to get off paint from the oil rigs, etc. So it's really, really toxic stuff. And it also increases the danger for us as the cleaners, because sometimes we don't know what's inside. So we have this rule, never open an unopened bottle or can or whatever. If we can see that if you turn it around the bottle and water is leaking out, then we know it was open, and then it's only seawater. But if it's closed and nothing comes out, don't open it. And then we have a special team that picks this up in the harbor and gets rid of it. But we found many of those because Norway has this strong industry around oil and, you know, oil farms and fishery, and they use a lot of chemicals.
Okay, great, thank you. And then we had another question from someone who actually visited your website and said, why is the age limit for volunteers 30 years? It's a very good question.
That's a good question. They actually raised this only for me because the age limit was 25 before I applied. but they changed it, and to be honest, it's a way just to minimize applications right now. As I said, we have over 2,000 open applications for this year only. So it's so much that we have to limit ourselves. And you know, to be honest, the average age is lower than 30. We have much less people over 30. But if you apply and you seem very passionate about it and you really want to join, you can always join. There is no limit unofficially. So it's just for us to limit the funnel of applications in the front, because it's just too much. We can't read 2,000 applications all the time.
Wow. But then aren't you, like, say, age discriminating towards the younger people? Yeah. I mean,
Yes, I know.
This is going to be a sensitive topic in that sense. Yeah.
I didn't say that. Is it on record? Damn it.
Yes, it is. Okay, but it is. I seriously think this should be rethought, because if it's only the limit is on age-wise, I think it's not going to be a fair representation of society, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And,
so
to be honest,
my own personal thoughts about this.
And to be honest, you're completely right. But to be honest, I think it only changed when they started. This is something when they started, and I think at the beginning it was a lot of young people only looking for this. But the more we talk about what I actually said in the presentation, that this becomes a majority feeling that people want to be more sustainable and do something, the age should be up to everybody could join. Mm-hmm. But when they started in 2017, that was still this point where people, like a lot of young people, were actually doing this, and not older people. But yeah, I agree. It should be open.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we have another question saying, are you trying to get legal actions being taken against polluters?
Yes, we actually do that. We do two things. One thing is for public reasons. So for example, we find one ketchup bottle by one company on every single beach that we go. The company is called Orkla. It's a big food supplier in the Scandinavian countries. And we collected all of these plastic bottles. And it's over 500 that we collected this year. And we brought them to the office. We took the media with us. We took NRK, one of the big public TV stations in Norway, with us. And we approached them and said, like, is it what are we doing about it? Is it your responsibility? The problem here is why legal actions are so difficult, especially in terms of marine litter. It's very difficult to tell actually that people who is responsible that it ended up in the ocean, because we find ownerless marine litter. Nobody owns it. Even if there is the name of the company printed on it, like it's the ketchup bottle, their lawyers tell us, well, but we didn't throw it in the ocean. So it's very difficult to actually go to the producers and tell them this is your stuff. It's a bit easier if we find like chemicals from an oil rig, because then it's no private person actually gets that and throws it in the ocean. But we will always contact them, and we always try to, help them and engage with them before we actually start suing them. Because they always have the better lawyers than we have, and lawyers are very expensive. But we try this, but we try it first with a public, with a public touch to it, to make them feel more responsible.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's like, and then one of those positions that some people might be thinking, like, yes, you can clean the hell out of yourself, but it's not tackling the source of the problem, potentially, yeah. And secondly, do we really have the power against the big guys and the lobbyists and whatever else is happening, right? Is it like almost like wishful thinking in a way? Yeah,
it is, and we are working right now on a system where we want to think about a shared responsibility. So basically, what we believe in is that everybody that values from a product, is it a margin of money when they produce it and sell it, or another value, like for example, eating a ketchup. Everybody in this value chain earns something from this plastic bottle, and everybody has a shared responsibility. So we will try to set up a system that everyone that makes some money out of this or values another way has to contribute to the cleanup operation. So it could be, for example, that if Orkla has a margin of 10%, they have to take over the cost of cleaning up one bottle, which is 10 cents, of X%. And that is how we try to make a process more fair, because everybody's always playing this blame game. Yeah, it's not us, it's them, they're throwing in the ocean. And as long as we're playing this blame game, nobody will be responsible. It will just float around. So we're trying to change the system around, and that's also what I meant in the presentation. We try to create system change with this, and not just clean, because we know we will never finish cleaning. There's so much in the ocean, we will not finish it. So we need to have a system change.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we have more questions coming up. Is In the Same Boat also operating in other areas of the world, or connected to other NGOs around the world, like in Asia, Bali, and other places?
Very good question. That was actually something I was working on in the winter when I couldn't clean. We tried to internationalize In the Same Boat, because we feel that the methods that we developed, or the best practices that we developed, could also be used somewhere else. So we are thinking about having another operation in Greece, because it's very similar to the topography to Norway, a lot of islands, etc. For example, Germany doesn't really make so much sense because we don't have so many islands. So we can just clean by walking to the beach. We don't have to have sailboats. But Greece is a good opportunity. So one of the things is scaling this to other countries. We are not there yet because it also takes a lot of time. But there is lots and lots of possibilities to adapt these cleaning operations also to other countries. We talked to people in Senegal, for example, if we could use that. But then it's also very similar, very different operations, and not so sailboat based, but more land based. But that is one of the ways where we can diversify into.
Yeah. And actually, another question about like, how can you actually do this for the majority to do this? Because as you said earlier, maybe because you were in Porsche and you had a good salary and you could, and you have no family, you can do whatever you want, and you just leave and basically dedicate yourself for a full year, 100% to doing something like this.
Yeah.
Many of us might either not have the same aspiration, but still want to do something. How would you advise people to integrate sustainability or actions in their, let's say, professional life, even if they are at a PwC or at a Porsche?
Yeah, and I think actually that is the much more important change that we have to have. As I told before, not everyone has to do this crazy step that I did. There is possibilities to also do something in your free time. The only problem is, these jobs, they don't give you so much free time. So when you work at PwC or BCG or McKinsey, I want to see somebody that is actually able to do anything. We actually BCG actually asked us if they could send their management consultants for a week to clean with us, which is a first start. This is a good thing to do. And I think this is also things that we should start with, cooperations between companies and NGOs, for example. That could be a good, and I think we already see this in so many companies. Because why? Because the young people want it. People that join the companies want this. And so companies adapt to it. It's actually a selling point for companies why people come to companies. If I would join another company that allows me to do beach cleanups while being paid, that would be perfect. I would be very happy. I don't need a company car, but that would be nice. But everybody individually can also do something. There is, as I said, so many websites in the internet that you can just check out. Or just organize your own beach cleanup. If you live close to a beach, just go on Facebook, just write, let's meet on Sunday for 12 o'clock. I get some plastic bags and we just collect plastic. So there is no limit to what is possible. And for example, these websites that I mentioned before, Workaway, they are very helpful to find things like this, and help me a lot to find something. So that is important. But I think also maybe one thing is that we talked about before, Angela. I also believe that there has to be an increase in jobs in this area, because I think if we always rely on volunteering in these areas, we will never get a shift in that we need, like the change that we need. So I was talking a lot with the NGO founder about, how can we make this a job that is actually paying you and that I can live on. And to be honest, we failed. It was not possible for them to give me a contract to continue working for them on a money base, because the funding is different. And this is something that I think need to change. We need to create jobs in these areas so that more and more people are doing this. Because canceling your job at Porsche and work for free to pick plastic, not many people would do that for a long time, because at some point you need to earn money. It's you know, it's expensive to live. So we need to create jobs in this, and this is something very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think the discussion is really about value, where value is being perceived and that people are wanting to pay for, let's say. Yeah. So, but this is, I mean, let's say part of a broader discussion is in, you know, that teachers, for example, in many countries earn nothing, while they are, I believe, one of the most important people to influence the next generation of people and leaders, right? So things like that, or other people who have to, let's say, risk their lives for safety of the rest, they don't really get the same as someone who's maybe, I don't know, in banking or whatever it is. And that's like how value is perceived in the world. And as you said, I can imagine there's a shift actually already happening in a way, because so this year it so happens that the World Economic Forum, so the WEF, that every year takes place in Davos in January, the topic was sustainability. Even we actually had this topic already in the symposium before we actually knew that it was also the WEF topic. And so even leaders on the largest stages, because I was also in Davos this year, everyone is talking about it, and companies are making a shift. Even if you say that people are saying, okay, let's send our management consultants to actually start cleaning, there is an incentive for it, because the value is shifting the perception of what it means. There was another question actually here saying, have you developed ways to catch microplastics or very small pieces of plastic?
Yeah, that is actually an even bigger problem. You know, the stuff that we find on the beaches that we can see is not the majority. So actually the things that we don't see is much bigger. So the biggest polluter in the ocean is actually microplastic coming from paint that is put on oil rigs. So we can clean the entire beaches and it will still be a lot of plastic in the oceans. So yes, there is also that stuff, but the NGO that we have is focusing on the big stuff. We have a laboratory where we can do stuff like that, but we are not able to collect it because that's requiring much more extensive operations. But this is a even crazier problem, and this has to be addressed by many more than just us.
Yeah, actually, we have at the symposium, upcoming symposium, someone, the CEO of the Ocean Cleanup, who is trying obviously to clean the whole ocean in that sense. Do you actually have contact with them, and have you discussed with them? And tell us about it.
Yeah, like I think the NGO world is a very open world. I think because there's people working in those companies that have different values, maybe, you know, they don't see this as a competition so much, even though there is some competition, but not as strong as, for example, in the free business world. So we have contact with all of those, the Ocean Cleanup, etc. But they are also, for example, not cleaning microplastic. They are only cleaning the big stuff, which is a start. But but there's interesting, now that I work for this venture capital fund, there is a lot of startups developing now systems about how can we clean up microplastic, how can we stop microplastic from entering the ocean, for example, by using different kinds of paint on the oil rigs. So there is a lot of stuff happening, and I talked to many people in the office today, and they said in the last year, they can really feel that it's picking up, so that more and more people are getting concerned about it. The question is, are they getting concerned about it because they feel the effects? I think companies already now have sustainability or the climate change as one of the biggest threats to their operations. I hope they have. If they don't, then they are really, really in for a surprise. But, you know, and this is now, I think that the momentum now is picking up more and more. And if we, on our private side, also pick this up, then we are talking. Then we create system change that is done by many people, by the majority, and not just somebody that, you know, quits their job and goes picking plastic. Yeah.
And would you say, like, in the large corporations, if people do stay in their jobs, that you say, like, hey, what kind of initiatives would be the most helpful in order to change, let's say, the mindset from inside out, right? So if you were in Porsche at the moment, or PwC, wherever, and you would not go into this, let's say, complete switch of life, what would you start with? What would you do?
I would go outside of the box, get out of the office, see the damage that we're doing. Because the problem is we are very, very disconnected of these problems. We don't see them, you know? If that would happen right in front of our face, then maybe we start changing. Like when I came first to like the first beach that I saw, I was like, what the hell? This is Norway, where I thought, oh, this is the perfect country, beautiful landscape, la la la. No, I literally, I entered the island and I could hear the plastic under my feet everywhere I went. And I was like, this can't be, like, how can we do this? Why? And I think this is the craziest effect that people can have. You know, go out there, go outside of the box for real and see the damage that we do. And go back and say like, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. We can't do this, because it will, you know, it will create, yes, maybe we earn less money, but we create a sustainable future. And, you know, then now we're getting into this, you know, it's a very big discussion. And I know there's other theories out there, but we need to see the damage that we do. We are so disconnected to this. And that's why I would suggest everybody to just go. For example, that BCG sends their consultants to us. I think that's a very good idea. And you probably should not only clean with them, but you should probably also have workshops with them, understanding the problem, and, you know, making sure that they take this with them, not just go back and say like, okay, let's continue like we did before. But the first step is actually seeing the problem and taking care of it. Show leadership and do it. That's the thing that I would suggest to do.
Well, I see an idea for a new NGO or even a business coming up, leadership expeditions with awareness and basically, training on this, what you said, education actually, yes, on the topic. Yep. You know, speeches in the companies. Yeah, and you also mentioned already, like, I do believe what you said is true, that there is a trend in career, that this is going to be an indispensable part of your mindset and curriculum, because in the end, technology is combining, is like networking everything and everyone together, right? So we're more connected than ever before, and it will only be a more and more platformized and network world. So the only way to solve, you know, to sustain actually yourself is to have what I call holistic view on things, and the planet is one of them. And the way that you see how everything is connected by doing something like what you did is actually getting that bird's eye view, right? What we say. Yeah. And it will be one of the key skills for the future of work. Yeah. Because it is no more relevant to stay in your box and not seeing beyond the borders. It's going to be for that kind of stuff. You have all these robots and stuff that will do it. And we see else needs human intervention. And we see the damage that we did with staying in the box for too long. Mm-hmm. You know, our box is so far away from the real box that we don't see the damage that we do from the box that we are in. And bringing those boxes together, or actually sharing these boxes, that is a good idea. And did you actually, how have you, now on your turn, right, to your, let's say, normalized life, you talked about you're actually a little bit sick today, because you said like, hey, I was on Steve for so long, and now I suddenly get in between all these people, and I'm not just used to, let's say, society almost anymore, with people, and I'm getting sick, literally. Yeah. So how do you intend now to incorporate whatever you learned, whatever you've seen, into, let's say, normal life? And I'm saying this also because of my own experience. I told you I traveled around the world for years after my graduation, and I had to also incorporate back into normal life. And so what is your view on this? That is a very, very interesting question, because I'm right now in the middle of this. And as I said, I didn't intend to actually start a job. Like, I wanted to stay away from jobs for a year and just, you know, clean beaches or do something like that, or sail. But it was nagging, as usual, in me to figure out a way to combine these two worlds, because it wasn't all bad that I did in the last 8 years. I'm not saying that everything I learned or did was bad. I learned a lot for life and for my career and whatever, and for my personal development. But I wanted to use that for something good. And then this opportunity at Catapult Ocean came around, and I felt like that, like it was just matching, because it's, you know, it's combining the old world and exactly what I said. I went outside of the box, saw the damage that we do, and I tried to go back to the box, but change the box. And that is, I think, what is important. But I also agree, to be honest, it is difficult still. You know, sometimes I also feel like, okay, let's just go back to the industry. Why do I have to be the one that is not doing that? You know, and it has to become easier to do this switch, and that I feel right now is very challenging. I think it's actually interesting what you said, because there is actually completely off topic maybe, but there's the monks in Buddhism, right? They say, oh, if you think, you know, you went to the mountain and you think you became enlightened, go back home and live with your parents for 2 weeks and see how enlightened you actually are, right? It's exactly what you say. It's easy to be out of the box. Same with in my own experience, right? So it's easy to be out of the box, but to be back in the box, like you said, and change the box, that is exactly what is it about, right? Because the one extreme is easy to be in, the other extreme as well, but then how to really make a change, to drive transformation from the inside out, inside the system, that's going to be the big challenge.
And I just started this process. And I know it will be difficult. There will be a lot of temptation to go back to the other world because it's sometimes a nice world and it's easier. Let's see how I manage. I can't tell. That's to be seen.
Yeah, I think also just a last comment because I see that we are about time. Because in the end, it is not easy to go back what we call in the consensus, right? Because as you said, everyone around you is living this life, this normal life without being left. It's kind of like a energy around you that is influencing you in a way, and you need to go back into the flow. So very curious to see how you are going to navigate this, right? How you're going to sail
Let's see. I will sail through it. There will be stormy days and there will be sunny days.
Okay, well, I mean, let's say, keep us updated about your journey because we're very curious. I think a lot of people who are considering something, a move like yours, would be thinking about, okay, but then what after, right? So
they can obviously, I can, you know, you can all add me on LinkedIn or whatever. If you need my email address, you can also ask Angela. I'm very happy to talk to people, and if they have questions, they can also contact me afterwards.
Right.
I'm back to civilization now, so I have good internet connection. I can help people now.
Really cool. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story with us. I hope that the discussion that we had was useful for people who are listening. If there's any other things that come up, then people can contact you directly or through us. Thank you again, and good luck with your reintegration. And I'm sure that you're going to inspire a lot of people here to find their purpose and to drive, you know, their purpose. In their integrating their professional lives. So, and take care. Also, safe, get better.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, and guys, then that's it. Thank you for joining everybody who is on this call tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in the future events around this topic. Because again, leadership needs this awareness, needs action and transformation. Not tomorrow, but today. And it's not even for solving problems of tomorrow, but solving problems of today. So see you in the next time that we can meet. And Matthias, have a very good evening.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.